happy to see. I think I'm dying here, man.
Through the haunted mansions and floors, the creep, they lead us to the places from which we dare not peek. A journey through fear and the realm of the night. In every word they speak, our hearts ignite with fright. Welcome to the horror show, the Deep Cut Podcast, where nightmares come alive, ready to take their blow. Tune in to the chilling delight on the airwaves of the night. Let the darkness grow. Let the darkness grow.
Aw, yeah, it's that time again for another bi-weekly podcast with your hosts, Rotten Roger DeMarco and...
Special guest, Snarls Barkley.
That's right, yet again, Mr. Evil, not here sitting across from me, so reach out to the one and only TapeHead himself and say, we gotta talk about this crazy-ass movie.
I was thinking on camera, I probably look like the Wish version of Evil. My beard's pretty sweet and red, but like, yeah. I'm like the fun size version.
the Timu version.
Yeah. Wish is dead. This is Timu.
Made in Canada.
Made a boomer comment. Yeah. What's up?
Nice. Yeah, you know, with our schedules, Evil being where he isn't always able to be here when it's time to record podcasts, and I like having guests, and I like being in the cabin, so we're going to do it.
It's always fun to be here, man.
Yes, I love having you, man. And also, no slight to my co-host, my home slice Evil, but I don't really think this is a movie in his wheelhouse specifically. And I know when you and I talk about this movie, there's a little bit of reverence, a little bit of love for this movie. So you clicked the thumbnail, you auto-downloaded the podcast, you know what we're talking about, but we're talking about Malignant. And I'm going to let my co-host give a brief plot synopsis, and then we'll just get right into this.
All right. So, young woman Madison starts off. Well, I guess we start with a little backstory, a little flashback to medical facility. This character, Gabriel, is causing havoc, running wild. And then we cut to modern day. Young woman Madison has got a total piece of shit, scumbag, abusive, drunk for a boyfriend.
Got a baby in the tummy.
Yeah, she's pregnant. He gets a little rough with her, causes some issues, and then once she kind of goes down for the count, all hell ensues, and it takes off from there as a slasher. I don't even know. Not really supernatural. It's just a real odd slasher flick. And
yeah.
Madison, for some reason, can see through the eyes of this killer, and it really sets up an interesting dynamic.
Yeah, this movie, so I'm going to go ahead and get it out of the way right off the bat. For some reason, the world hates this movie. I'd say like 99% of people I talk to don't like this movie. And I was venting about this yesterday to my wife. I was kind of getting animated, you know, as we do when we talk about things we're passionate about. And I was saying, like, the horror community is so fickle. You know, they stand there with their arms crossed and they say, like, we want something new. Stop making remakes. Stop making legacy sequels. Give us something new. Wham, 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 wham. And then James Wan gives you something new and you go, but not that, though. I didn't mean that.
No,
you know,
I think I always say it's the lens you look through, right? You have to shift your focus. And people went into this thinking it was going to be like a tried and true kind of slasher horror flick.
Yeah.
And I don't think, that was Wan's intention. I think the stuff that people complain about, I think, is intentional. Some of the camp, some of the acting, there's some rough spots, right?
We made TapeHead. It's okay.
Wooden acting happens, and I think it was intentional, right? Yeah. I think a lot of what people hated, they refused to accept that, like, maybe that was the way, right? Yeah. And we did. We got an original, a new killer before the big reveal. Really awkward, an unsettling, uneasy performance by this killer, and people just, they didn't want to accept it. They just wanted to complain about You know,
All the camp,
yeah, there's some camp and some kind of some cheese on this thing, but
Yeah. Oh, this is extra cheesy.
Yeah.
But this is James Wan. You know, this is a guy who has proven himself. And he kind of got the keys to the kingdom. And then once you have established yourself as a king of horror or whatever, a modern king of horror, studios are quick to give, you know, you got to make another one like that because that was a hit. You got to make another one like that. That was a hit. Keep doing what you do. So he got in this rut of making the exact same movie because he knew there was a return and the studios wanted him to do it, you know. He's a name. And once he finally had enough of that, he says, well, I want to make a movie for me. I want to make my tribute to the, you know, those schlocky video store movies that I grew up on. I want to make my cheap independent slasher, but with I think a 400 was it 4 million? It was like a crazy budget.
he had a solid budget for this one.
Yeah, a gigantic budget. I want to say 400 million. That sounds way huge.
No, that blows out like a Marvel movie.
It was a big budget. Like
maybe 40. Maybe
40 million.
We can find out while you're talking here.
Yeah. And so he gets he gets to finally make this movie, and it's obvious when you look at it that what it truly is this. It's a love letter to Giallo films. It's a love letter to the vintage slashers of yesteryear, and it's also a love letter to like those weird, quirky B movies like Henenlotter used to make. You know, like your Basket Case and Frankenhooker and all of that stuff. So it's just him going back in time, being a kid. And
40 million.
40 million.
Yep.
Okay, yeah.
We just had to move the decimal.
Yeah, extra zero on there, you know.
Yeah.
But, I mean, extra cheese, not an extra zero.
That's right. So I think a lot of the thing, again, people watch this and, again, we're not critics, man. Like, This isn't why we do this. We love movies and we talk about movies and why we like them, right? We don't ever do negative reviews. That's not what you do. That's not what I like to do.
Yeah, it's not my style.
But the camera work is amazing. Like, within this movie, the shots are gorgeous. And I don't hear people talk about that. They complain excessively about these things they don't like instead of saying, like, whoa,
this was
man,
awesome.
Did you see this, right? Opening, you know, at the hospital when the lady pulls the tranquilizer gun and that angle where it follows the barrel. That's a beautiful shot.
Yeah.
The overhead stuff in the house when Madison's running. Like, there's some gorgeous shots in this. It's a very well-made movie. Yeah. And people just are unwilling to see, and maybe people just look, again, through a different lens. They don't look at the filmmaking art. Yeah. They look at just, did it entertain me? And even then, they're a little excessively critical. It's entertaining as hell. Like, you can't watch this movie and be like, man, the pacing sucks.
Or it's boring. Yeah. No, it flies by.
It goes from the start. It's intense.
Yeah.
Like,
I think
30
it's,
seconds in, you're like, whoa.
I think wrong era, right? Like, if this was made in 1993 and you rented it on VHS, and you rented it on VHS, this would floor you. Mm-hmm. It would blow your mind. If you were a 12, 13-year-old kid and you saw this movie when you shouldn't have seen this movie, it would be your favorite thing in the whole wide world. Right off the bat, like you said, at the hospital, we're treated to blue lighting, red lighting, completely unmotivated, really, and it's got those Giallo colors, that super dark shadows, and also his look. Gabriel's look is 100% Giallo killer,
So even the cover art, right? And that scene that the cover art is from, it's all red lighting. It's a super close up on an eyeball. I mean, that's textbook, right?
Oh yeah.
Like that it is what it wanted to be, and people just didn't want to accept that, I think.
Yeah. Well, I also think like the casual horror fan, the casual film goer, when this came out, this happened during COVID. So yes. I think this got like a HBO Max release.
Yeah.
But I think like your casual horror fan, your younger horror fan who didn't grow up on a Giallo film or whatever, or like I said, grow up on some of those 90s movies either, they watch this and they see James Wan's name attached. So immediately you're thinking it's a supernatural ghost movie or whatever. And those movies take themselves pretty fucking seriously. Like, if you look at the Conjuring movies and stuff, there's not a whole lot of levity. I mean, there's love for, like, the older ghost movies in the new, like, Conjuring movies and whatnot, but they don't have that, like, slasher has camp.
Right.
You know? And if you embrace the camp, you can only please half the people. So,
and it's got some really cool, like, 90s action flick elements.
Yeah.
So when Gabriel and Detective Kakoa have their chase scene through the city, it's like reminiscent of, like, Darkman, like, lighting wise and feel like it has it becomes almost like an action flick, right? You're not really, there's some suspense, but all of a sudden it's not really a horror flick. It's crazy action sequences. You know, we're talking fire escapes. We're underground in this tunnel. We're breaking up. I mean, it's an action flick. There's a lot of stuff going on that it's not your standalone slasher. You know, get to point A to point B.
exactly.
There's a lot going on, and he's like, man, I want to shoot this. I want to shoot this, and he can shoot action sequences. He can shoot suspense. He can shoot. He kind of proved that he could do a lot of different things, and it's never disjointed, right? It doesn't feel like 1/3 of it's a horror flick, 1/3 of it's
like a detective
action.
movie. Yeah.
Yes, there's a lot of movies that fail at that because it's not fluid. You know, there's movies that basically feel like 3 different films in one.
Yeah.
And he instead takes 3, 4, 5 genres or subgenres, puts them in a blender, and he's like, "This is the movie I want to make."
Yeah.
So you can see his influences.
Yeah, and also, like, the setting doesn't hurt either. Like, Seattle, and then especially with the underground version of Seattle, you know, and we come back to that a few times, and like you said, the Kakoa chase ends up down there and stuff, and we're really, like, my favorite thing about this movie is, I talk about this all the time, like, when you're making a successful slasher villain, like, if you want something to become a franchise, right? There's a handful of things that go into it. One, the look has to be captivating, so you have to have a good look and a good silhouette. Perhaps a custom weapon, a cool theme, and Gabriel has a very cool theme music, which is, we revisited a few times. We have that, like, breathy la la, and then the Where Is My Mind synthwave cover, which is brilliant, which they're telling you right there, and you know, spoiler alert, but, like, you know, he has all of these things going for him, and then he has the lair, like, up in the attic, or you're also teetering on, does he hang out in that underground?
Yeah. So that's the thing. They keep that pretty ambiguous, right? Like, his lair is, where is it, right? Like, they don't really tip their hand too much. They keep it kind of like, but you have this suspense that, like, it could be right under your nose, or it could be somewhere completely different. And I don't know. I think the average, I don't want to say average, I guess you're somebody that's really into film and just a movie junkie. The reveal probably comes to you sooner, right? They intentionally, I feel, tip the hand a little bit, right? You kind of know before the reveal where this is going.
Yeah.
So,
well, look, you have an idea.
Yeah, you have kind of a hunch. Maybe you don't know all the details, but you know the scene where they're aging the young girl's photo.
Yeah.
And you know what's going to come out.
Yeah.
At that point, if you hadn't kind of figured out before, you know, based on how many times Madison's been questioned about all these things and how she seems to be connected.
Yeah.
You know, once they're like, "Hey, we're gonna age this photo 30 years," you're like, "Oh man, we know."
Yep.
But even then, it's still fun.
Yeah, and also, so going back to, like, tipping the hat a little bit, right in the opening credits, you know, we're basically getting fed all these little tidbits and all these little things that are going to come into play later. But somewhere along the line, there's a phrase that's spoken. I think it's, you know, either in the doctor tapes, like right before the official reveal, or maybe even a little bit earlier. But we hear the phrase a teratoma.
Yes. Yep.
And a teratoma, which I had to look up, so I'm not going to front like I knew this, but it literally translates to monster tumor. And I'm like, oh, well, yeah, they're kind of telling you right there, which is also, it's a monster tumor that feeds off of embryos of unborn children, which kind of ends up being the whole crux of the movie. But what I was going to say also about, like, the lair and, like, the whole the look and all the things that make a successful villain, is another thing that it works. Like guys like Jason, guys like Michael Myers, we're going to watch return movies, but they don't have the personality of like a Freddy Krueger. So this movie found a smart way to let Gabriel have a voice.
Yes.
As opposed to just being a silent, like, weird teratoma trench coat wearing thing.
And I will say that's where you just have to suspend disbelief and enjoy the movie, right?
He can control electricity.
Right. All of a sudden he has like some supernatural abilities. Like he speaks through audio. So basically anything with a speaker he can communicate through.
Yeah.
Radio, the toy phone, which I did have in my notes real quick. A young McKenna Grace. I don't know that, people know her from Ghostbusters. Mm-hmm. She's a megastar. She's on, I remember the Sheldon, the Big Bang Theory, like prequel show.
Young Sheldon.
Yes.
Okay.
So she's on Young Sheldon. She's a big name right now, and she plays the young Madison.
Oh, nice.
So I was like, man, I rewatched it this week. Obviously, I always, whenever we're going to talk about something, I revisit it, no matter how many times I've seen it, just to get it super fresh. And somehow that completely evaded me. And while I've seen Ghostbusters Afterlife, Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, I'm like, holy shit, that's the girl. Now going back and watching Malignant again, I'm like, that's McKenna Grace.
I didn't even notice, and I watched it a couple times this week as well.
She plays the young Madison. So I'm like, man, that's a pretty big name. And it's kind of odd that you don't hear, obviously once you become a star of Ghostbusters, what you've done before isn't as relevant. It's like, she's from Ghostbusters. But yeah. I kept looking and I was like, man, she looks super familiar.
I'm going to have to look this up. Yeah.
And then I was like, I think that's McKenna Grace. And I was watching with my wife. Emily's like, it looks like her. And we had to, if we stream it on TV, then you can always just hit the drop down, and it's got IMDb built in, which is handy. So
it is very handy. Yeah, that's crazy. I didn't even know that. But so again, that's like a really cool way for Gabriel to be able to speak, and then it also kind of throws you off the path a little bit. I mean, we're already hip to what's happening, but when she's being interrogated and then Gabriel calls, and so the light pops, and then we get that true, like, ridiculous, like, she's only being underlit from the cell phone light, and it's so dark in there. And then that, I love that line too, like, didn't she tell you what she used to call me? The devil. Like, I'm getting goosebumps, like literal goosebumps. Like, so good. And
one of my favorite things, so, when they show the flashbacks to and it's super creepy, right? So McKenna Grace plays the young Madison, and she's getting, you don't hear Gabriel's voice, you just hear her responding.
Yeah.
And it's like creepy, like basically tell, you need to kill this unborn child. You're my sibling. Well, he doesn't know it's a sibling, but like, hey, I'm the only person in your life. You need to kill them. And and then way before Skinamarink did it, the toy phone, lights up, and she's talking on the toy phone, and he's telling her, what needs to happen. And so obviously, if you're along this far,
very
Gabriel,
Poltergeist 2.
Yes, Gabriel is a teratoma. He is a part of Madison. So we've kind of got to the point where we can talk about that. Hopefully you've seen the movie first before you listen to this,
because we're ruining it for you.
But Speaks. One of the things that the first time I watched this movie, and it didn't click, I had to watch it like a second time within a few days to try to like start digesting some finer details.
Okay.
So first watch through, and I kind of missed a subtle thing, and I was like, well, Madison has to go out, right? But she's always in the home. She's always seeing the killing through Gabriel's eyes, but she's always like in the laundry room. She's in the floor, or on the floor in her house. Like, she never leaves. But then in the end, they can imprison each other in the mind.
Yeah.
So she's actually out, and in her head, she's in this trap. Like, she only sees her surroundings because that's what Gabriel has controlled. They share one brain.
Yeah.
Gabriel has made her see that you're at home. There's a killer out there killing all these people. I want to show you what I'm doing, but the impression is that she's at home, or not wherever these murders are happening. And then you start to see how Gabriel can control that, and then ultimately how she learns to do the same to control him. So,
which is very Elm Street, right? And this, again, going back to my co-host, Mr. Evil Dead Inks, who is a massive Elm Street fan. And I was kind of, when I got him to watch this movie, I was like, dude, it has this beat, this beat, this beat, this beat, and also very Elm Street, you know? And so you get to the point, the finale, and she essentially pulls a Nightmare on Elm Street 1. Like, well, I take back everything. All the power I've given you, I take back. I'm the one in charge, you know, and locks him away in the back of her mind. And it's so good, and it's built-in sequel fuel, which, you know.
Talk about shock value when we see Gabriel shoot Sydney. So we haven't even talked about Sydney much. So Madison has an adopted sister. You know, she was adopted by this family. The family had a child of their own. That's her sister. And, you know, Gabriel's going to kill Sydney right in front of Madison, essentially, at that point.
Yeah.
She knows, but she's entrapped, but Gabriel wants her to see the environment they're in now.
Yeah.
And I'm like, there's no way. She's going to gain, you know, you think, and I like the fact that he doesn't give us what we expect, right? So we go, Wan sets this shot up, and Madison's fighting for control of her body. Boom, pull the trigger, and the brain splatters on the wall. Kill the sister. I'm like, holy shit. And then goes and kills the mom. I'm like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
And then you start to see the flip, and she kind of gains control, and then you see Sydney's asking for help. The mom is still alive. You know, she was able to flip the script and put Gabriel, you know, locked up in her mind. But
yeah. I will say this. I love that sequence. I wish to God that it played out the way that it does. You know, like, I wish it actually happened.
Because it is a lot ballsier to pull that off, right?
But, again, very Elm Street. Like, I want all my friends back. What? Yeah, I want my friends back. Yeah. Give them back. Although at the end of the movie, because, you know, Bob Shea is a fucking devil, and he wants his way, so they filmed like 9 different endings to the movie, and, you know, Freddy's still alive, or whatever, at the end of the original Elm Street. And so we kind of get that, too, with Malignant, like, the subtle humming of the light, which, had it flickered, it would have been a little too much on the nose, but the subtle...
No, it's very audible. You can tell that Gabriel's still exercising some control of the environment that they're in. So,
and we should have got a sequel, and that's what it was, right? The movie cost $40 million to make. It only grossed $39 million, which is a travesty.
But we also, you nailed it before, it was in an era where there was no box office, right?
Yeah.
So
does that count your HBO Max subscription that goes
subs, and then I would assume eventual, and that's the thing that's kind of unfortunate for movies like this. You nailed it earlier. In a different era, this is a staple of the video store, right?
Yeah.
We always come back to, for us, the video store was such a foundation for us,
if
right?
Full Moon made this movie?
Yes.
Yeah.
So you go back, and it takes so long for a streaming service to let it go because they don't want to dip into their profits, right?
Yeah.
So Shudder's pretty good about releasing stuff on physical media because they know their audience, right?
Yeah.
Shudder
the horror
knows you
fans,
and I are watching Shudder, but we want it on the shelf, right? It's not going to make us not subscribe to Shudder.
Yeah.
It's going to double dip, right? So we're going to have that Shudder subscription. Shudder says Shudder exclusive. They're getting paid for that licensing on the physical media side. They win all around, and they get it. A lot of the Netflix stuff, Fear Street still doesn't have a damn physical release.
I mean, you can order one on the internet. You can order some boots if you want, but...
they're terrible about it, though.
Yeah.
Netflix, they hold everything so close to the chest that they haven't figured that out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Same thing. This thing came out on Max. Same thing with Barbarian. It took a while.
Barbarian does not have a physical release yet.
Still not?
No.
Yeah.
No, you got to buy it on fucking Etsy. But going full circle, the last time you were here, we were talking about Shudder.
Yep.
And we were talking about In a Violent Nature, and I was like, I'm going to watch In a Violent Nature tonight. I rented it the last time you were here. As of yesterday, In a Violent Nature is streaming on Shudder. So, by the time this episode comes out, it'll have been there, been removed, been on Blu-ray for 6 months. But, yeah, that's another... Did you watch it yet?
I have not. So actually, our boy Groovy Movie, he hit me up last night. I was doing another content deal with a guy, and he was like, "Hey, In a Violent Nature's on Shudder. I'm going to watch it."
This.
I was like, "Fuck, okay, I got to watch it." So I have not yet. Probably
tonight. You and Clayton tonight.
Yeah, we're going to hang out and check it out. But it's just the climate's so strange, and a movie like this, unfortunately, is one that falls through the cracks. Right
Yeah.
now, Terrifier, Skinamarink. They go straight. They get Walmart exclusive steel books. I can't figure out the culture that we're in right now as, one, physical media collectors.
Yeah.
Two, horror movie and physical media collectors. I can't put my finger on the pulse of what's going on. You know, there's things that you and I talk about that, like, we're begging for a physical copy of, and stuff that, and again, the masses have loved these films, and
Yeah.
we haven't necessarily, but they're going Walmart exclusive. Shit, I think Walmart's putting out VHS. They had a Terrifier VHS, I think. So, you know, what gets put out on physical media is such a niche thing. And you've got movies like Malignant, that textbook video store culture kind of flick, and it didn't happen for them. And it's hard to say why.
Yeah.
James Wan's a big name, right? Like, he's done some pretty big films, and his sequel stuff doesn't see that diminishing return, right?
No.
Like, there's minimal, and sometimes they get to a point where one of the sequels outperforms the earlier works, and it's a wild ride for him. But
I blame COVID. I genuinely blame
It
COVID,
is.
because you're not getting an accurate representation of, because during COVID, you know, we're assumed that we're all in our own individual boxes and we're not around people, but that's not to say that a family or someone who knew that all of his friends didn't have COVID got together and 20 people watched a movie and it's counting as one view or whatever. And I'd assume it's like YouTube, like where every time someone watches a video, there's a thing called CPM, your cost per milli, which breaks down into fractions. So like if someone watches the full movie, you may get, from this user, you're going to get a penny. From another user, you're going to get 7 cents or whatever. So I don't understand how you can calculate how much money the movie made. All I know is it's been since COVID. This came out in 2018, and we don't have a sequel. We're never gonna get a sequel. It's just kind of this
2020 would have somewhere in 2020, 2021.
Okay.
COVID was
2019 to 2020.
so basically, like just before. You know, so basically winter 2019, 2020.
Yeah.
The big global thing was like spring of 2020, and this came out, I think, the following year. Theaters still hadn't recovered yet.
Okay.
But if you think, things always find a way, right? If somebody wants something to succeed bad enough, they're going to find a way, right? There's a bunch of boutique houses for physical media, right?
Let's go Scream Factory.
Yep. So Scream Factory, you've got your Kino Lorber, you've got your Vinegar Syndrome. You know more all the boutique labels than I do even.
Code Red.
Arrow.
Yeah.
You know, Arrow is a big one. And then you've got like your VHS subdivision. You got like your Witter Entertainment, Lunch Meat VHS. There's some out there that are
Broke Horror Fan, I think, which is with Witter maybe. I'm not
so
sure.
you're getting some physical media stuff there, right?
Yeah.
Theaters, they figure out, well, the collector side of people.
Popcorn buckets.
Popcorn buckets. It's something
Cups.
tangible, right?
Yeah.
You're going to the movie and you're leaving with the experience of seeing it on the screen that you prefer, but they're dragging you out of the house for these trinkets, right? It's like the toy in the Happy Meal box, right? Now you go to the theater and they're selling out.
Yeah.
And just like everything else, who fucks it up? Scalpers, you know,
Yep.
the resellers. Hey, I'm going to go buy 10 Beetlejuice buckets, so I can't have one and I want one.
Right.
Because I'm a collector. I got to buy it from a fucking scumbag on eBay.
Yeah.
Sorry, if any of you that do that, I get it, man. It's capitalism at its finest, and good for you. I shouldn't knock it, but
No,
I
you
want
can-
one for the price that it's supposed to be.
No, you
I
can
don't
knock
want
it.
a $30 Beetlejuice bucket for $80.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, no, it's BS, man.
yeah.
But hopefully down the road, this movie will see, a resurgence, a new life. I could genuinely see a Devin Whitehead special edition, badass poster, loaded to the gills with special features, because this Blu-ray, I think maybe has like a 5-minute whatever blurb thing, and then like another maybe a 7-minute, so 13 total minutes of special features, which is just a travesty.
With all of the wild sequences, like the BTS would be amazing. I mean, how they set up these certain shots, how they did these scenes. I would love to see that.
Yeah.
Like, that could be, I could watch that for 2 hours. I could watch the movie's runtime just in dissection of how they did this shot and this shot and this shot.
Well, I say it all the time, whether you like Rob Zombie or hate Rob Zombie, the Rob Zombie's Halloween, if you have the special edition Blu-ray, it comes with a bonus disc that's a 4.5-hour making of documentary, and it's better than the movie. But I love the movie, but I'll watch that 4.5-hour documentary like once a month.
Yep.
Like it'll just take my whole day. But yeah, when you love something, I would definitely watch a 2-hour documentary making of.
So when you mentioned the Devin Whitehead, I completely got sucked into wanting that for Malignant so bad when I bought the House of Wax Scream Factory. That cover, because Vincent with his long hair and the wax mask, like a very similar look.
Oh yeah.
And the background on my poster that I got with it, it's similar look to the layer. It really was like, man, this would be almost perfect. Change a couple characters here, and this would be a beautiful piece of artwork for Malignant.
Yeah.
And we haven't gotten it. I don't know if we will. If people listen and they like it as much as we do, start telling people. Yeah,
make it happen.
Do that for us,
please.
I want it on my shelf.
I want a Gabriel action figure. Like there's so many, there's so many things that we could have. We still haven't put out our TapeHead coloring book, but imagine a Malignant coloring book. Like, come on, man. Yeah. Let's go. Give me all the things.
I need a red, a green, and a blue crayon.
Yeah, done.
It's a 3-pack. It's cheaper.
Color a fucking zebra. No. That's an Eminem reference, deep cut. But, yeah, and we haven't really talked about the police station massacre, which is... Also, this is another, like, crazy camera. The camera's moving. I've seen this movie, I couldn't tell you how many times, and I watched it a couple times this week. And now I'm starting to see that there's some like CGI usage, but it's so frenetic and exciting that like it rivals. I bring this up all the time because I love police station massacres. Like this rivals the best of them. This is with the best of them.
So on that topic, I'm glad you brought that up because I do want to talk about that scene. It's probably, if people have seen this, that scene is probably like the most standout action.
Oh yeah,
vicious. It's just it's brutal. That police station is massive.
It is.
Like I don't think it has a ceiling. Like that's the biggest police station in cinema history. Usually your police station is like close quarters, and you got like your
couple little
buddy.
hallways. Yeah,
and maybe like a little cubicle. The captain always has his glass door, and he's got his office. Every police station is almost always the same. And this thing's like a cathedral.
It's like, Seattle. That makes me think of Last Action Hero when he's like, I was just in a real police station. This is way nicer.
Yeah,
like,
it's massive. So that set is just so open.
Stained glass windows and shit.
They never show a ceiling. I mean, that thing's just, it goes on infinitely. It's 30 stories, but there's no layers. It's just like, I don't know. It's strange.
It is a gigantic. I wonder if it's a set or if it is like a building.
I don't. And again, I've been to Seattle. I've never been incarcerated there, so that's awesome. I've never seen the police station.
You might have to change that.
Yeah, I have to go get.
Have you been to the underground? Have you ever done that?
No. So Clayton did.
So that's real. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Like, I don't know anything
the Seattle,
about
like haunted underground tour. That's a big piece of their tourism. So, like I said, I have not been to that piece of it in Seattle, but like being in Seattle, you see flyers and people really pushing that everywhere. It's a very popular tourist attraction, so that part's real.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure that's not Seattle PD.
Yeah,
I'm just gonna say.
I mean, you would only need one police station if that was the case. Yeah. Which he kills everybody in that police station.
But if you look, there's like 100 desks.
Oh yeah.
it's a crazy layout. Like I still don't know the physics of it, but
100 fucking desk cops just hanging out.
But
and
there's
also
only ever like 3 people working. So like the guy that does the composite drawing for the agent, Kakoa,
the girl who likes Kakoa,
yeah, the forensics
which
girl.
is James Wan's wife.
Oh yeah, and I like her. They always had to be like kind of the quirky. Let's put glasses on this one, like
and then not quite Wanda Sykes.
Yes, Timu Wanda Sykes.
Yeah,
and she's great.
Yeah,
but yeah, like they've got this massive set piece, and there's like nobody's ever there until Gabriel goes to slay everyone, and then everyone's like 100 cops.
Yeah, all the cops they were just coming home or coming there to clock out, and then they got massacred.
Nobody's on the streets. Seattle's running wild.
Yeah,
all the cops are in the building,
and also that holding cell is massive.
Yes,
too. And that's another thing that Evil missed when he watched it, was that Zoe Bell
Yep.
is the main baddie in the jail cell with her mullet and her jean jacket and everything.
Yeah.
And they don't give her enough to do. She has like the one stunt, but like that whole sequence too is phenomenal. You got a lady dressed like she's in a 70s disco for some reason, and just Gabriel smashing everybody. Also, it's the first time, I think, because it is the reveal, right? It's the first time you see
the head peel,
her head
open up.
and you see the main girl's head on the back of the head.
Which, and again, you know, seeing that, and then if you either think or if you go back and watch it a second time, every time there's a killing and she's like, always blood on the fingers. I mean, they there's a lot of tipping of the hand. There's a lot of premature spoilers, essentially, that, like, if you really wanted to dissect it, and again, this is one of the things I almost need like earmuffs when I watch a movie with my wife. 5 minutes in, she's like, hey,
why are they doing that?
It's this. I'm like, and she's always right.
Megan too.
Every time.
Megan too. They got that sixth sense about them.
They just know, and I don't know if it's just like a women's intuition or like, because, you know, our wives are always watching. We watch stuff together, right? Like you and I hardly ever. We don't like to not include them in what we do, right? We're big family people, so, and maybe it's just we've conditioned them, but they have.
They're picking up on shit that like, we're a little slow to the draw on. Dude, now.
I think honestly, man, like once a woman becomes a mother, it's like this gift because they're just like super aware and like it's like their spidey sense. Like, that's a bad person. I'm like, no way. Oh yeah. And
then 20 minutes later, you're like, motherfucker,
I'm doing this. I'm like, just shut it off.
Yeah. So speaking of things that you notice on repeat viewings, again, I've seen this movie X amount of times, a lot of times, a lot. This is a comfort movie for me, which is to say sometimes it's on and I'm not quite paying attention, but it's on. Yeah. Have you ever noticed that the crack in the wall from where Madison gets her head slammed into the wall, it's a face? It's Gabriel's face. No, it literally has the eyes and the creepy mouth.
I don't think I've caught that, and like I said,
I need a screenshot of it. But like,
I just rewatched it. Like I said, I've watched it probably not quite as often as you, but like when I ended up buying it for Clayton for Christmas, whatever year it came out on a physical on Blu-ray.
This was a day one Blu-ray purchase.
I had to wait. Like I said, he was a huge fan of it, and so
rightfully so. You're raising him right.
Yeah, him and so Malignant and Candyman, the new one, that year, those were what he wanted for Christmas in his little stocking or whatever. So
that's a good Christmas.
Yeah, we watched it a lot. We both love that movie, and again, it's just you just sit down and you go along for the ride. I mean, it's frenetic from the get-go, and you just sit through it. Yeah,
it's a. I hate to say when people say like it's a throwback to such and such time period, but it really is. This is you can shut your brain off and watch it and enjoy all the visual cues, all the audio cues and everything, or you can dissect it. That's why it drives me nuts that more people don't like it, because it can be for both.
And even the look of Gabriel, the trench coat, the gloves, that's Giallo. Like, that's a very typical. Sometimes it's a brown trench coat, but like
even the weapon is very Giallo.
Yep. The look of Gabriel and the movement. You talked about there is some obvious CGI. The one thing, and I watch, and not to criticize, but just to see if I can catch it. So obviously with Gabriel being at the back of Madison, everything's backwards, right? Mm-hmm. The hands, the movements, the feet obviously can't flip around. But if you watch, especially in the police station, the movements, they never pull he couldn't move that way, right? When it sometimes has to crawl like that crab crawl thing to do certain things, and same thing in the tunnel, crab crawls through that hole in the bricks to escape from Kakoa. The movements never cheat the physics of it, right? Now there's some, for the speed and some of the sweeping motions and stuff, you can tell in the police station massacre it's CGI, right? Yeah. It has to be. But I don't feel, and I've looked very closely to see, that they're moving forward, not backwards. They keep that really tight. They do a good job of not defying the physics and basically just ruining how this character would have to move. Yeah. So there's a lot of detail in there that, again, some people criticize the CGI fight scenes. I'm like, but look.
It's so dope. Yeah. And I think it's either 2 or 3 contortionists who did all the Gabriel stuff. And when you have a physical performer, kind of like Guillermo del Toro's Mama, right? Like, that person did have like weird elongated fingers and like really bony structure, so they're able to kind of do those things. Granted, they put some CGI over top of it to enhance it or whatever, but Gabriel, like, being able to do all that stuff physically without the aid of wires for the most part, until they're cartwheeling through the air or whatever. But like, having it a real person is fucking amazing.
Yep. And it's weird that people will criticize that, but I can't even count how many movies have a child, an elderly person, crawl up a wall, contort themselves, spin the head backwards. Like, it's been done to death. Mm-hmm. And people are like, oh, that was creepy. I'm like, but you can't believe that a character would like move backwards.
Yeah, I'm the backwards man, the backwards man. Well, Freddy Got Fingered reference, deep cut. I remember when the movie came out, there was a lot of memes of Tom Green in the mirror. Which, spoiler alert, but I don't. Well, we've been going for a little over 40 minutes, so I suppose we can move on to the next segment. Unless there's anything else you want to touch on real quick before.
I said we briefly touched. The score is amazing. Like, and you and I being big, you've been a performer and created music. I'm a music. I digest as much as I can. Music's my passion. From an audio standpoint, I don't create, but I absorb in high quantities.
You don't create yet.
That's right. So the score, again, I just want to throw that. It's phenomenal. It really couldn't be more perfect for the tone and the drive behind this movie.
Yeah. So. One last thing also, because going off of the score, just the atmosphere in this movie, which now that I've been editing the TapeHead interviews, a lot of people are bringing this up and talking about this, because when we were filming it, people thought it was fucking crazy, and now people are like, oh, I get it, like
the fog,
all the fog, colorful lighting, and everything being wet. This movie might have been like Patient Zero, might be like the true inspiration of.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because this does tie into the way you do your filmmaking, and there's never your whole motto, never enough fog. There can always be more fog. When they are in the underground tunnels, the fog is 3 feet deep. Like, that's the most fog.
Some Lost Boys shit, or Silver Bullet fog.
Dude, that's the most fog I've seen in a movie. Not called The Fog or The Mist. Like, it's crazy, and it's very Tapehead style.
Yeah. Well, also, whenever they show the exterior of Madison's house, when it's daytime, if you look close, you can see that there are houses like behind her house, but every time it's nighttime, there's
nothing.
So much. Yeah, it's like she's in the middle of nowhere.
And that's again, now we're getting a little like, we'll get back to our topics here, but so when they go to show the house, I caught that as well, because the neighbors heard screaming and fighting. I'm like, what neighbors?
They're in the mosh, kid.
The cops come at night.
Yeah.
And every time it's night, there's not. This house is like completely centrally located. There's no a block away in any direction. There's no house.
You can't see a block away. Yeah. It's a fucking dense fog and flashing red and blue lights. But on that note, we'll move on to the next segment, which is our Brown Panty Award.
Oh, baby, it's time to slip into something a little more comfortable. It's time for the Brown Panty Award.
And since you're the guest, I suppose I shall let you go first, sir.
Right.
While I have a little sippy.
This was pretty easy for me, and there are several candidates for this award in this film. To be honest,
everybody
we talked
dies.
about Toxic Avenger. It's hard to find one. In this one, there's a lot of sympathetic characters. Mm-hmm. For me personally, and it's odd that it hit me, but he's just such an unassuming, seemed like a genuine dude. The hospital security guard. Gabriel explodes his pacemaker. That poor guy was just doing his job. He wasn't even like, you need to stay away, trying to protect the patient, and blows up his pacemaker and
My
kills
chest
him.
is hot.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
I was like, why'd you kill Super Mario? That's sad.
Bob Hoskins.
He looked like a Mario brother.
Yeah.
But, that part. I think definitely it was very undeserving.
Yeah. I mean, he was just wrong place, wrong time, and he didn't try to fight or anything. He's just a normal dude.
He didn't have enough screen time to really like buy into him a lot, but for some reason, I remember the first time I watched it, and every time since, I'm like, man, he seems like such a nice dude.
You know who he reminds me of? He reminds me of the janitor in the Creep Show, The Crate.
Yep.
It just reminds me of that guy, like just a nice old guy that,
Hey,
wrong
don't
place.
go in here.
Yeah, wrong place, wrong time. That's a good one.
He's my guy.
Okay, so keeping with the sympathetic characters who pass away in this movie, a lot of them are just cannon fodder. You're getting cops getting smoked, hundreds of cops and whatever. And everybody else that tried to lock Gabriel away, they all get their comeuppance, right? It feels very Tales from the Crypt or, Vault of Horror or something like that. But there are some deaths in this movie that are essentially off-screen or, just talked about. And they have a big impact on the story because without them, we wouldn't get where the movie goes. So my Brown Panty Award is going to go to all of Madison's unborn children that Gabriel has been feeding off of. Because that's another, it's super cool that she's had X amount of miscarriages and we don't know why. And then at some point we get to, that's why,
That's the power. That's the source of energy.
Yeah, it's like, again, Freddy Krueger, fucking feeding off the souls of the children. And, she's carrying her latest baby at the beginning of the movie, 2-term, and gets her head smashed by her piece of shit boyfriend, and Gabriel sucks the juice, kills the baby, so Gabriel can fully come to life because he's open, or the back of the head's open, or whatever. And so X amount of fetal stem cells.
I don't know if they say how many, just,
enough.
It's a lot,
Enough.
Yeah.
So,
well, actually, I think they do say 3 in 3 years or something like that, or this was the fourth one, or so. Yeah, basically,
got to go to the babies, man, because they literally didn't do anything. They didn't get a chance to do anything. So, yeah, they're very sympathetic. I'm not trying to laugh.
No,
you know what I'm saying?
But, and it does kind of tie into when they show later on. Gabriel wanted the sibling to die, right?
Yeah.
Gabriel does not want to share Madison, with anybody. That's his one and only. He just wants it to be them.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah. God damn, I just keep thinking about all the sequel potential, and I'm sad about it. But with that being said, we'll move on to the next segment, which is our Perfect Execution Award.
You're gonna die, clown!
Perfect.
there's a lot in this one that you could pick from, right?
Yeah.
I tried to find something that was a little bit atypical, right?
Okay.
There's a lot of stabbing, slashing.
Mine is not going to be atypical.
So there's a lot of, just swiping and slashing and stabbing motions. So,
cartwheeling.
I don't remember. I don't think they even give a name. In the holding cell, the head stomp. It's something you could tell, an extra level of malicious, right?
Mm-hmm.
Slashing, stabbing. Those motions are very, I don't even, just smooth and sweep. Just part of Gabriel's style, right? So the head stomp was a different level of frustration.
And the slashing and stuff is pretty. It's quick, and it's almost like a fight scene, like when someone gets punched and they just fall down and they're knocked out now because they got hit one time or whatever. So the slash is like a cheap way for it to be final,
right?
But that's good. You got the say something. Head stomp in there.
Yeah, well, that's my pick for that one.
Nice. Like I said, mine not anything crazy like that, extra gory or anything, but mine's just going to go to the entire police station massacre because I brought it up. That's one of my favorite things in like 80s and 90s horror is when a villain just, converges on a police station and like you're like, oh, I'm safe. I'm at a police station. No, wrong. Jeepers Creepers. Let's kill all the cops. Jason Goes to Hell. No, wrong. Let's kill all the cops. Terminator. Whatever. There's hundreds of movies where this happens, and I just every time I'm like amazed by it. You got all these super capable police officers with weapons just getting killed in 2 minutes flat, you know. And it's exciting. It's fun to watch. Granted, like you said, it's a lot of slashing and whatnot, but it's entertaining. So all those poor police officers who are just trying to clock out, they get my perfect execution.
Well, and that is good because most of the other Gabriel kills are they're killing a still target, right?
Yeah.
You know, there's some attack, but like this is such a wide open space with armed people, you know, literally trained people to stop these kind of threats. So it does show like the full just power and chaos of Gabriel versus all the other kills are very, very similar, where basically preying upon, and they're a little bit older, these people, you know, they're not, you know, you got
spry.
You got doctors and scientists, and you got people that like, that they're not going to put up a fight. So yeah, the police station is definitely a showcase what Gabriel really can do.
Yeah. Well, you use parkour to, you know, evade gunfire, which is impressive.
We've been doing that since The Matrix.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Well, I suppose we can move on to the horror movie survival tip, How to Survive Malignant, brought to you by our wonderful, wonderful author, Walter Paisley.
Mine is a little different than yours here, but my survival tip is if you have a splitting headache, take a Nuprin. They're little, yellow, and different. You got to squash that before it becomes a real problem. So Wayne's World, deep cut.
I love it. All right. So I will give another survival tip. And mine looks like it is don't get it twisted. Avoid all domestic violence. Words to live by. Literally. If you don't beat your wife, her symbiotic twin won't come out and play, if you will.
Try to put your head on backwards.
Well, now that we've given our survival tips, we can move on to another little segment that we used to do way back in the day on the 3B Video YouTube channel, called The Tie-In.
It's time for the tie-in. So many movies, so little time. You better pick yours before I pick mine. So watch a double feature. All monsters and creatures. It's a double feature of death, death, death.
And with this segment, what we're going to do is give you a good pairing for the movie that you're watching, whether that be a tie-in directly because of actors, theme, whatever you think is a good double feature to watch alongside Malignant. How you gonna start your night? How you gonna end your night? Yada yada. Do you want me to go first?
Yeah, you can go first on this
Okay.
one here.
All right. So I had some contenders. You know, I could have been a contender. I had many movies that I went back and forth with, but there is one movie to me that feels like it fits with Malignant so perfectly. Another movie that I feel is extremely slept on, nobody talks about, and a movie that I saw in the early 90s that no one was talking about, and it kind of follows a central theme with Malignant. So my tie-in is going to be Stephen King or George Romero's The Dark Half, because you get essentially the teratoma, the conjoined twin, and then you're kind of left to figure out, is George Stark a real person? Is this a split personality situation? What's going on with this? And it's I don't know why people didn't like this movie. More so, I don't know why I did like it in 1993 or 94 when I saw it. It's a very different movie, but I love this movie.
So, unfortunately, I have the same tie-in.
That's not unfortunate.
No, I will say my experience is a little bit different than yours, though. I was a voracious reader as a kid.
Okay.
And my mom was huge. Dean Koontz, Stephen King. I read The Dark Half and was completely captivated. It was one of the coolest things. It was a pretty successful book for Stephen King.
Okay.
And much like we talk about, we didn't get cartoons as live-action movies. We were stoked to ever get one.
Yeah.
So King's had a lot of adaptations, but when I saw that there was going to be a movie of The Dark Half, I knew the story, so it wasn't like a surprise or a twist, but I wanted to see it unfold on the screen. I love the movie. Now, again, it's not as good as the book. And
I was going to say, different?
It's different. The book is, if it could have been a literal, it would have been about 3 hours long, probably.
Let's go.
Which I was all for. Like, it's a thick book,
Yeah.
King used to just write until he ran out of paper, I think. So, anyway.
Chopping down trees in the backyard and shit.
I need more. Yeah. Just truckloads of paper. It's like 1,200 pages. Dark Half is, I want to say it's like 600. It's a thick book.
That's a good one.
Yeah, super good. So, of course, it is better than what we got on screen, but I still love the on-screen version. And again, George Stark they find out these things are happening because he's got an absorbed parasite. Well, I don't know if they call it a parasitic twin, but an absorbed twin. They look and he's got like some teeth and like an eyeball.
Which is awesome.
Yes.
Oh.
So The Dark Half was also my tie-in, and there are some other choices that are similar. I almost went a little different. I was kind of circling around an episode of Tales from the Crypt.
Oh yeah, I know
with
when you're
the
talking
puppet,
about.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
I was thinking, I almost went with Basket Case because this has a very Hen and Lauder feel.
Yep.
But going back to Dark Half, I don't know why this just popped into my head. It also has Giallo elements.
yes,
Leather gloves, straight razors, blue lighting, fog. Very, very Giallo. Just clicked. So
and it's such a niche fan base. I mean, it's a wide fan base, like globally, but I do feel like in the States, it's always kind of like further down the line for a lot of people.
Oh yeah.
We're big on our 80s slashers and iconic horror characters where Giallos, there aren't a lot of sequels, right? You get these one-off pieces of really
sleaze,
good
and they're sleazy, but they're
yeah, you just feel like
like Universal with horror fans. Like you've got fans of like Hammer horror, and they stick to Hammer horror as opposed to, and then there's like old school American horror fans who are like born and bred on Universal Monsters. They were kids and grew up on that kind of stuff, whether that's like Space Invader movies or giant bug movies or whatever. And then you start kind of branching into these things, and like a lot of American horror fans, I don't want to, they don't have the patience, I think, for a Giallo, because a Giallo is very much like, it's a whodunit, but it's like a sleazy, it really pumps the brakes, like when it comes to reveals and things like that. So they're an acquired taste.
At full admittance here that I do not have my finger on the pulse of the American audience right now, because we're talking about how they like that. Most 80 slashers are less than 90 minutes, right?
Yeah.
It's quick. Get to the point. Let's see some action, and let's go. We enjoy our popcorn. We get a jump scare here and there, and like we love it.
Yeah.
But that same audience will tell everybody they know how great. And I'm not trying to crush this dude's art, but like Skinamarink, you're watching corners of a room for like 2 hours, and people will sit through it and swear that it's the best, most original thing they've ever seen. So again, I don't understand what the hell people want. I'm out of touch, I guess, but
I've tried, or I watched Skinamarink once all the way through, and I fully immersed myself. Lights off, surround sound all the way up, like phones off. Nobody talked to us, nobody walked through, and I really tried to put myself in that mind space, that Blair Witch mind space, if you will, because when you watch Blair Witch, if you're not engaged in what's happening, then you're going to think it's boring. And, so I thought, I'm going to approach Skinamarink like I did Blair Witch. Yeah. And full disclosure, I didn't get it. So
did I tell you my Skinamarink story? I don't know if you know.
That you fell asleep?
No.
Okay.
So Clayton and I really wanted to watch it. And we mentioned earlier, like, as
Yeah.
a family, we love to watch films together. And Emily really wanted to watch it with us. Well, she was at work, and Clayton and I were like, look,
We'll
I don't
pretend
wanna
we
wait.
didn't watch it.
We watched Skinamarink. We never said a word. Then the next night, Emily's like, hey, we should watch Skinamarink. We're like, okay. And we didn't tell her we had already seen it. And we sat through the whole thing, and she's like, that was terrible. I'm like, that's what we thought last night.
Now I've had to watch it twice in 2 fucking
so
days.
Instead of she went from being mad that we lied to her, then she was mad that we didn't tell her it was bad, and we made her watch it too. Like, it's only fair. So
Yeah.
I got in trouble double time on that one.
Yeah, and you had to sit through it twice, which is like
I did.
It's the equivalent of like when you're a kid having to like put your face in a corner. Like
Yep.
that's how I feel about that movie. There's nothing in that movie where I was like, well, at least I saw a nipple, or at least I saw some blood. Like there is no at least. At least it's over. And
There
you
are
know,
a couple.
more
and we
power
talked,
to
there,
that
There
dude.
are a few little scenes that really build some tension, and then there are a few that build, and then it never, nothing happens. You know?
Hey, so-
I was telling myself what was coming, and I was like, "Man, this will be cool." And then it was not, right? I'm like, oh,
So sidebar. Also, again, by the time this podcast comes out, we'll have seen what I'm about to bring up, and have formed our opinions. But going back to Stephen King, did you see the trailer for the new Salem's Lot?
yes,
I'm down.
yep.
Let's
No,
go.
I definitely think that this is how you do it, right? I think
Yeah.
this is how you take a pretty acclaimed property, right?
Yeah.
And you do it justice. So
I like the OG Salem's Lot, but it's like I don't feel good and I need chicken noodle soup movie.
I didn't love the miniseries, like the reboot or remake
With Rob Lowe?
Yes, I didn't,
I watched that once.
yeah. So I did not care for that. The original's good.
I like
The original's-
Return to Salem's Lot, but like,
Yeah. No, I'm excited for what they're doing with it. So
yeah, it's gonna be good, or at least the trailers make it seem very good. So I'm ready. But yeah, I suppose on that note, we'll move on to our final segment of the podcast, a little thing called the prop game.
It's sound of Malignant time! Sound of Malignant time!
That's right. It's time to play the game. And if you're new here, welcome. But you're probably scratching your head asking yourself, what is the game? Well, the game is a deep cut in and of itself, where you gotta pick a prop from the movie that we are covering, but it can't be a well-known prop. So, since we're covering Malignant, let's just say no excellence knife, no trench coat. I feel like that's about it as far as low-hanging fruit, because it's the killer's wardrobe. Other than that, everything's pretty much up for grabs. Make it weird, make it unique, make it different. Let us know on the comments on the podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Podbean, wherever you find us, Patreon, Discord, Facebook. We're everywhere. Find us, let us know, because this is like my favorite part of the podcast, is hearing what you would take from the movie. But again, make it weird, make it odd, please, for my amusement. Yeah.
So for my prop, and they're surprisingly a lot, because you got some flashback. There's a lot of cool sequences in this movie, that a lot of different time periods and things like that. So you have some cool things in the background. Now, this one for me, it wasn't necessarily a background, but it is, we mentioned a little bit earlier, a scene that I really enjoyed from like the creepy factor.
Okay.
And it's, I wish we wouldn't have mentioned Skinamarink like 3 times in this podcast, because I want the toy phone.
Yeah, hey, nothing wrong with that.
Young Madison, McKenna Grace, is on the toy phone at Christmas. It's a beautiful scene. They got this gorgeous tree and all the presents, and she's on the phone, and it's lit up green, which green means TapeHead, because it is my favorite color, and I love green lighting, and it's green. And she's talking on the phone, and Gabriel's telling her, like, hey. And she's, yep, okay, I know what needs to be done. I like that scene a lot, and I love that prop. So the toy phone has nothing to do with Skinamarink. I wish Skinamarink didn't make it as cool as it should have been from Malignant, but yeah, I want the toy phone.
There's nothing wrong with that. Yeah, that's a great sequence, and that's also another really cool way. This movie does exposition without just cramming it down your throat. you know, some of it you got to look for, like in the opening credits or things like that. But it takes its time, man. It lets the story breathe before it's like, here's what's going on. And it leaves it up to you to figure out until they want to tell you. So, yeah, that's a sweet prop. I got no issues with that. I have 2 in case my first one is too greedy. Because I think it's greedy. But I don't care. We were talking earlier about how we're not sure if the police station is a real place or whatever. Well, I know for a fact one thing is not a real place, and it is Madison's house when they do the overhead shot, the coolest shot in the entire movie where the camera follows her, because it's just this big square built with no ceiling. And if I could somehow, some way, if I had my own warehouse, I would want that house set. If that's too ridiculous, I will settle for going to your flashback when Madison is on the phone and she's in her room and we get the cool blue lighting and everything. Off in the corner of her room is a dollhouse with the front open, you know, like one of them big dollhouses that kids play in. And I've always had a thing for those types of dollhouses where you put like the, you know, the little furniture in and you can paint and put wallpaper up and stuff. Those things creep me out ever since like Amityville Dollhouse, which is not a scary movie, but
the episode of Creepshow, the new series,
Hereditary.
Yep, Hereditary. Emily brought that up. She's like, that's almost identical to the Hereditary. I'm like, yeah. So no, whenever those are used in horror, it's usually very unsettling.
Yeah, I love it. It's a unique thing, and there for a really long time when Tyson was younger. We would always go to like Michael's or wherever, like when we're buying craft stuff, and he'd see those big dollhouses, you know, and they're like $800, and he'd be like, I'd like to have a dollhouse. But he's a very destructive child, and I'm like, I'm not about to spend like $900 on something made out of balsa wood, and you'd be like, I threw something at it, you know, or whatever, and I'd be like, fuck me. But yeah. They're creepy, they're cool, they're unique, so yeah, I would take that in a heartbeat. But really, just give me the damn house set so we can shoot our own. Imagine shooting TapeHead in that thing.
You want a house of some size. That's what
yes. I want to be able to do a cool, you know, camera over the top. I want
someday, man. Someday we'll have a whole sound stage, man.
Yes. Then I can build my replica of the Michael Myers house like they did for Halloween Kills, and yes, I want all of that. I want it now. Please make this podcast popular so I can build my own.
There will be a tip link in the bottom of the...
There is. You can donate. Donate. I need it.
Yeah, help us out.
Yeah, please. But I suppose on that note, we should probably get going because, after all, there's a lot of movies out there and somebody's got to watch them. So why not us, right?
Thank you for listening to the Deep Cut Podcast. There's a new episode every 2 weeks. You can find it on Spotify and all major podcast apps. Don't forget to let us know your topic. Every 2 weeks, there's a new episode. So rate us and subscribe to the Deep Cut Podcast. There's a new episode every 2 weeks. Yeah. You can find it on Spotify and all major podcast apps. Don't forget to let us know your topic. Every 2 weeks, there's a new episode. So rate us and subscribe to the Deep Cut Pod, to the Deep Cut Pod. You can find it on Spotify and all major podcast apps. Don't forget to let us know your topic. Every 2 weeks, there's a new episode. So rate us and subscribe to the Deep Cut Pie. To the Deep Cut Podcast. To the Deep Cut Pod, to the Deep Cut Pod. Podcast. To the deep cut 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 podcast. Every 2 weeks there's a new episode, so rate us and subscribe to the deep cut podcast. 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 To the deep cut podcast.